Alrighty, and yeah, I just kicked other Dan back out to the waiting room and pulled him back in, but audio is not reconnecting yet, so I'm not sure what's going on with whatever device he's on today.
Okay.
But
Dan says he's just logging in now. Re-logging in. So let's start recording when you tell me to, and we'll go.
You're good to go.
All right, I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Wednesday, February 10th. Missing currently is Dan Dvorak and Brianna. Let's open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is there any public comment? Hearing no public comment, we'll move on. Since Brianna is not available, we had no communications or correspondence. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meetings of January 13th, 2021 and February 3rd, 2021, the joint special meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Oh,
Any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a vote. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any nays? Nope. Passes unanimously. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, that we move to the Board of Ed financial report so that the Board of Ed people can get out of here. Steve's stuck behind anyways.
Oh, that's fine with me.
I'll second that. Anybody discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Rosa, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks. So I'll start with the January financial report. We have good news there. We're looking at a slightly smaller budget deficit than we were last month, a decrease of about 48,000. And most of that has to do with some savings in athletic transportation that we were able to realize. Since we last talked to you, we weren't sure about what was happening with spring sports, but now that we have a clearer picture on that, we're looking at some savings there, as well as a particular settlement in special education outplacement tuition that came in a lot smaller. So overall, month to month, that is pretty positive. Were there any questions on the January report? Okay. So is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yep, you should have access to it.
Okay, great. So then the other piece that I shared with you guys, some really exciting news. We were able to lock in a couple of quotes for various insurances that ended up bringing down our budget for next year. But the really big one is our health insurance. So Ken and Marcia and everybody on the town side has worked really closely to try to get a better estimate. And we were actually given a closer estimate that's about 300,000 less than what we had originally budgeted. And this is a conservative number. So we are fairly confident that we can reduce the budget by that amount. So none of these figures here, well, the health insurance figure is not going to be considered final until probably May. So that might fluctuate a little bit, but again, this was a conservative number and they're fairly safe. We feel fairly safe in reducing the budget by that amount. So that brings the overall ask down to 3.29. So that's something that we feel we can safely achieve right now. But further beyond that, we did take a look at some possible further reductions by using the ESSER 2 grant. Now, two of the things that we identified would probably qualify for that are our two investments, the summer school program and some technology professional development, because both of those could potentially be directly related to difficulties that have arisen as a result of COVID. The only problem with that right now is that we need to get further clarification on the state in terms of the use of these funds, but more importantly, we have to have completed a needs assessment as part of the package for that grant to be awarded to us. And so far, we don't have what that assessment is supposed to look like. And no towns have. Dr. Burrell is the president of the Area Association for Superintendents, and none of the regional schools have this information yet. So we're trying to lock that down. As soon as we can get that completed, we're going to try and get these two pieces also brought in under that grant, because it's important to note that these two things in particular are supplemental to our budget. They're new investments, as opposed to something that's supplanting something that's already there. So if we were able to do that, we could reduce the budget even further by about 70 grand. So ultimately what we might be looking at, and I would imagine by next month, we would know for sure, a potential reduction all the way down to 3.13 as our ask.
With the ESSER grant though, that is out until 2023 though, right? So
for use, yeah, for use of the funds, but I believe the deadline to apply for it, according to the website, it's the end of this month. But again, none of the application sort of materials like this needs assessment in terms of what you need to do for that needs assessment is available yet. Okay. So everybody's kind of scrambling to get that information. But yeah.
Okay.
Rosa?
Yes.
One of the things that I just saw today that John has been forwarding all the information as it comes in, but in the governor's budget, when they gave that 328,000, they divided it into two, as if one was this fiscal year and one was next fiscal year. And I hadn't seen anything about that. So we should just be on the lookout for that we may not be able to spend the whole thing in 1 year, even if we wanted to. I don't think we want to, but they may have some timing restrictions on that.
Yeah, the reporting that I got showed 164 and 164 for this year and this upcoming fiscal year and the next. So yeah, we should watch that.
Okay.
But that still would fit in here if you can make these saves.
Yeah.
I will say, Rosa, thank you. This is exactly what we wanted to be last year. This helps, I think, everybody knowing these numbers as early as we can to allow us to make better decisions. And I appreciate you sharing these. We understand these aren't hard numbers yet and that they may move, but the sharing of it allows us to at least see a better picture. So it's much appreciated. Yeah. On the summer school, I think one thing we got to remember, and it may already be, if we implement that becomes an every year expense as something that will carry on past the grant.
That's
so I it's your prerogative to put in what you want to put in, and it's your board and everything else. I just want you to think about future too. If that's something you want to continue with, it's going to be something down the road that'll need to be absorbed into the regular budget. Mm-hmm. That's all. I mean, I'm not telling you either or whatever, just, a little heads up that 50,000 2 years from now, we may have to pay out of operating.
Right. And that's where, more information in terms of how we can use these funds and how over what period of time we can use them would be really helpful. So hopefully by the time we next talk to you, that we'll have even more information on that, and that this portion of what you guys see in front of you can be locked down.
Awesome. Anybody else want to add?
Yeah, I also want to thank you, Rosa, you and your board for putting this together out in front. And, whether they're bad or good, in this case, they all look pretty good. But the sooner you get us the information, the better. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eileen, you want to jump in here with anything?
You're on mute.
Sorry, I got to hear about this the other day at the Board of Ed Finance Committee meeting. So I'm good.
All right. Okay, Rosa, I think from the point of view from our side, is there anything we should be aware of in your financials that has you on edge or nervous or upcoming? Maybe you or Bob can answer it. Are you still comfortable where you stand?
Unless Bob has another opinion, I think we're pretty good where we stand right now. Of course, we're always keeping an eye on special education, tuition, because one shift can be sometimes very big, and our in-district professional services as well. But right now we're looking pretty good.
Okay, anybody else want to ask a question before we let them go? All right, hearing none, thanks, Rosa, and thanks again to your board. Again, this is what we talked about last year on making this whole budget process easier, and I don't know where we're going to end up, and it's in the Board of Selectmen's hands now. But again, your work's appreciated this year, so thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, on to the first selectman.
Thank you. First, building. A lot of construction's going on in town. Brookfield Village, I think everybody's seen that. They've already got their main floor in. They are working right through the cold. They have heaters in there. They really want to be finished by late summer, September, October at the latest. The assisted living building on Federal Road down by O'Connor's Pub, that's going full speed ahead. They had, from what we heard, I think we've discussed this before, some financing dropped out on them. They were able to restructure it and they're moving forward. The supermarket is moving forward. They've been going through the boards, and what they're waiting for now is the encroachment permit from the state to go onto Federal Road. They've already paid for what they call a cut to get onto Federal Road pretty much directly across from Laurel Hill Road. But the state, we're having the same problem with our phase 3 and 5 of the streetscape. We applied for our encroachment permit a couple months ago, and the state is overwhelmed, is what they're telling us. And so we're really hoping to get ours for the phase 5 in the next few weeks, so we can do the project, go out the bid and do the project this summer for both phase 3 and phase 4. 730 Federal Road, which is across from where the supermarket would go, across from where the old pharmacy was. It's going to be a medical building. They're moving ahead. They have to do a traffic study between the supermarket. It's the same developer, between the supermarket and the 730 Federal Road. They may have to do a traffic study, which may delay them a little bit. That's putting the rubber strips down on the road and seeing how much traffic goes by to determine whether or not it needs a traffic light. Well, they're willing to put in a traffic light. They just have to know whether it's needed or not. My guess is, I think it would be. So those are all moving pace and going very, very well. On the new school, you may have heard, we did get bids back on the primary construction parts. The MBC has looked at it and made recommendations and awards for that to various construction companies. I asked Paul Checo to put together an overview for all the boards of where we are, Tecton, O&G, all the expenses we've had so far. And right now it looks like we're comfortably within budget. We'll see exactly where that ends up, but that is good news. I think that's partly because there isn't as much construction going on as we talked about before in the state, with towns not being able to do referendums and approve capital projects. We have what we believe are some very good contractors with lots of experience, and we're still on target to start this spring as soon as we can with that. That's good news. Little good news is this, I think Mark Mulvaney will want this, and Eileen, we now have an ice skating rink in town, guys, at Williams Park, 45 feet by 75 feet. And I'm told people are having a lot of fun on it. So people should get out there.
And kids have already used it and love it. So
they?
thank you.
Did they like it? It was
Oh,
fun?
they love it.
I think it's great. It's outdoors. It's safe. You can safely distance. And people are being pretty good about doing the social distancing. And so that's a big win for us. As you know, probably the WPCA is moving forward with a couple projects. Dean Road, which is just across from the police station, sits very low, right next to the Still River Greenway. They're doing some design studies for a project to install a sewer there. Then they're also looking, I think we've discussed this before, as to putting additional sewer in the town center in the Brookfield Craft Center area. So it would serve the craft center, the building, the Brookfield Market, and those buildings in that area. That's a little earlier stage. They're also looking at and have started to do a study of bringing the sewer up to the Candlewood Shores area. That's a longer term project, but they're planning for that for the future. The police have started their body cams. We were a little bit ahead. As you know, the new Accountability Act requires police departments to have body cams. We've had them up and running for about 3 weeks. They're working very, very well. The police officers like them a lot. They're easy to use. And so that's moving very, very smoothly. The state has also told us with the Accountability Act that we will get a grant to pay for part of that. So that would be good if that does come through. On COVID-19, we've had 6 clinics so far. We've filled every single spot plus some. The first day we had 100 doses given to us, but we were able to get 103 doses out of the actual vaccinations that were given to us. So we have lists of people so that at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't show up, we start calling people. Hey, you want to come down and get a vaccination? And that's worked very, very well. I heard anecdotally that Danbury has, I believe, 2 sites, one at the hospital and one downtown. And last week they were literally going out and asking people on the street, do you want to get the vaccine, because they had some openings. And it's more important to use the vaccine than it is to waste it. And we always try to get over, well, last week was over 75, and this week, starting tomorrow, it's 65 and older, but we've been able to use every single dose that the town has been given. We have asked for additional doses. We think we can do 400 a week at the senior center. We have not gotten the amount of doses that we want, and I think this is true for every single site. The supply, I think the infrastructure is in place to administer the doses now at a fairly rapid rate, but the supply line has not ramped up to meet the ability of us and other towns to give out the vaccine. So we'll watch that pretty carefully. Just to remind people that although Brookfield has clinics and we welcome everyone from Brookfield, if you get on the system and want to make an appointment, we think it's more important to make an appointment at Danbury or elsewhere and get the vaccine than to wait for a spot within the Brookfield clinic. So that was 6 clinics. One of our police officers was promoted. Ben Gerstenmeyer was promoted to detective. It's interesting, we had three officers take the test for detective, and they all scored within 1 point of each other, and extremely well. So that shows we've got some really quality guys coming up, and we're looking forward to Ben doing that. We're also, as you know, doing the revaluation of all the properties in town. That's going to be about another 13 months till it's completely finished. We are putting out on Spotlight every month which streets we're doing that month, so people get a little bit of a heads up. And we will, the people who are doing it, the reval company, will just simply knock on your door and tell you that they're there. They are not asking to come in your house, and we don't recommend, well, they're not going to ask. They don't want to come in your house. So they're just going to do the revals from the street, and that'll go on for another 12, 13 months. And that's pretty much it for me. Any questions?
Nope.
None?
All right, Marcia, you're up.
All right. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. that, and is it going to move? No, it's not going to move. There we go. You should have received the economic recovery dashboard graphs earlier this week from Steve. That just some of the highlights in case you didn't get a chance to look at them is.
When did we get them, Marcia?
Either yesterday morning, what day is today? Wednesday, Monday, or Tuesday?
I'm pretty sure I sent them out. I'll double check. Nothing's really changed on them. They're still trending exactly as we thought. I thought I sent them out. I'll double check that.
Did anyone else get them on the board?
No? Okay, I'll check that and send them out.
All right, but let me give you the highlights just in case. I wrote them down in case you didn't have a chance to look at them. Revenue, taxes after January collections are on target. We did have a little blip, so the graph does not look like it's on target because the last day that they were due was a heavy snowstorm. But when you look at I prepared them on the 5th, when you look at the collections from February 2nd to the 5th, this year were $3 million and last year were $500,000. So any shortage that we had at February 1st has been made up in the first week. So revenues for taxes are on target. Interest revenue is the only revenue that's significantly below budget, and we've been watching that. We know that. With respect to expenditures, the HR professionals, the pension attorney is high, that we've spent 95% of the budget so far there. It is somewhat offset by the labor attorney. So in total, that line item is not over budget, but again, it's something we're watching, which is why it's on the economic recovery dashboard. And police overtime, it's starting to increase. And in talking to Chief Purcell, there's a number of reasons for that. Is last year, everyone was able to carry over their vacation time. This year, they're not. So they've got to use their vacation time, even though there's no place to go. So he's got to cover some of those shifts. There's some sicknesses. There's some COVID quarantines. So on the graph, it's just starting to increase above normal. And he does expect that it's going to be continued to be high through June 30th. With respect to the health statistics, we are back to where we were before Thanksgiving on the number of cases in Brookfield. With respect to COVID-19.
Marcia,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Do we have any data on the severity of cases? Good to hear they're back to pre-Thanksgiving level. Do you have any idea on the severity?
15 deaths is what we're up to. But other than that, Steve, do you have that information?
The hospitalizations are down. That information is a little squirrely. It's not real hard data, but it's in keeping with the number of hospitalizations that we had before. The additional death, the 15th death, actually occurred, I believe, in November, but didn't get reported until about 3 weeks ago. So we're still holding at 15. Typically not a lot of people are going into the hospital, which is good, but it's good to see these numbers going down. Our positivity rate last week we reported was 7.5% of all the tests given. And that's good because it did climb up to over 11 right after the holidays. So we're trending in the right direction. Number of cases is down. I think it was 155 total for the prior 2 weeks from last week. And we expect that to go down again. And as more people get vaccinated, we're going to see this drive down.
Right. That's good. By the way, I just see that you sent us that email. Thanks for sending that.
Sorry, I thought I sent
just want to make sure, we hold everybody else to the standard of getting us the information before. So if we can do everything we can to get it ahead of time, that'd be great.
All right. This, I believe you got with Ginny because it's in the transfer requests. But we're trying to, with these vaccination clinics that we wanted to get an original budget out there that right now we've been working with just the senior center and the seniors, and this will be expanding. So this is just the original budget, so I could get something out there more or less as a placeholder, and then we'll work with them to look at more of the costs. But we are paying for the lead person's time, and for right now, the senior center assistant that we're paying for. And then we've got, I heard the figure of approximately 50 different volunteers, that we've got some great volunteers that we're not paying anything other than the food and drinks, and we're not even giving them full meals, just snacks.
So can I just jump in on that? So what we plan to do is we're going to hold the clinics at the senior center through the end of February. And then St. Joe's School has offered the entire building to us because we would like to ramp up, and we need more parking. We need more space to do that. And if the state will give us the doses, we'll move over to St. Joe's. And we'll be fine with volunteers because right now we have 50 people we've signed up. There are other people who have asked. We just have said we're kind of full. But when we move to St. Joe's, we'll probably move to 4 to 6 stations where we'll be giving the vaccine. So we will need more volunteers, and we'll move over there, and we'll give people plenty of advance notice. The only thing that might change that is there have been stories from the governor's office that he wants to do these mass inoculation sites, like at Rensford Field. And if they do that, they may take out the towns. CVS's and Walgreens are now taking appointments, and they're getting the vaccine. So it's still up in the air, but we're going to be prepared either way.
Great. And Marcia, I'm as fiscally conservative as most people, but food and drinks for volunteers, you mentioned it's snacks. Is there, I mean, could it be that much to get, I mean, give them meals, or do they not want meals?
Well, we in the past weeks have been giving them lunch plus bottled water and coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, et cetera. There are about 30 volunteers at the location.
Which is, and they're important. This is the most important thing any of us have ever faced. So
spending $2 a person, that seems like a reasonable.
It seems quite cheap to me. So
yes, that there was a conversation about whether meals or whether meals will cause too much with taking the masks off. So they did talk about it. And to be honest, that this is just something that I said, hey, what if we do this? Because they're scrambling to get everything done. I don't have the full input from them as far as what it's going to take for St. Joe's. But I wanted, if since we're starting to spend money, I wanted to start putting stuff down there. We may have some additional expenses at St. Joe's. There may be some IT costs and wiring and possibly paying for the heat. We're working through all of that. So we are expecting this to increase. And this is what we have right now.
I'm just personally, for me, I would rather not see anything nickeled and dimed on this. And I shouldn't call it, that's a bad term. You guys are doing great. If there was more money need to be spent, in a reasonable manner, you guys are doing great, and I would be in favor of.
We'll be reasonable about it. I agree with Marcia. If we could move to St. Joe's, the expenses will probably go up a little bit. We may have to pay. We want to offer them something. They're keeping the building at 55, 60 now. We'd have to move it up to 70. We don't want just St. Joe's to lose any money. Also, cleaning costs and things like that. But we'll dimension that further. We have a committee that's working on that. That's working with Doc Sullivan, and we'll dimension all of that and have it for you the next Board of Finance meeting.
And to your point, I did have a Zoom call last Monday in the snowstorm with Maureen, and did say that the finances are secondary and doing what she needs to do are primary. So I'm on the same page. With respect to funding, right now we're going to ask for it to come out of contingency. That FEMA says that they'll pay, which would be 75%. All the costs that we have listed here is what FEMA says, they're all included on the FEMA costs. They are I guess I'm just a little gun shy because they changed their mind retroactively, but they're saying that they're paying. That Doc is hearing that there's some other costs that some other grants the state is going to come through with. We have this grant called the ELC funds that has been paying for our contact tracers, or our lead contact tracer. And we're pretty quickly using up the first year of that grant. It's a 2.5-year grant. I did get an email in today forwarded from Doc that says that we can use that up, and they are moving forward the rest of the funding. So we'll apply for year 2 and the half of year 3, and maybe we can offset the 25%. So we're looking for money to pay for that, but right now we're asking it to come through contingency. So this is contingency. That when you saw a version of this last month. That but the Board of Selectmen, since they met the first day of the month, didn't have enough time to take a look at it. But the numbers that have changed since last month are in blue. That we had a steep contingency in September. Provided that we got the steep grant, we were going to use some of this money for land use, and I just forgot to put it in Munis once that was approved. So now it's in there. And then this last month, when you looked at it, was a negative 8,000 something. Because we had some extra money that was approved from the for the election that we didn't need for absentee ballots. That so we were putting that money back in contingency, but now that negative 8,000 turned to 16 because of this. That so if you approve this $16,000 transfer. That includes the money going back into contingency, the vaccine clinic. We would have used up 169,000 of our contingency, and we would still have 330,000 left to go. That and again, if we get FEMA, we would put more money back. But we're asking for you to consider a motion to approve or deny, just to talk about it tonight. With respect to the revenue from COVID, I don't think anything here has changed since you saw it last month. That there is more funding here. We talk about for schools and vaccines and possible rent assistance from the December package. Also, the government finance officers, our report association is following the package that Biden is talking about now, with the $1,400. And there may be more for municipalities in there. So we don't know about that. The ESSER 2 funds we just talked about, but we wouldn't want to count on anything for year end 21 because we just won't have the data for that. And we can't think of it as a reimbursement. We've got to think of it as payment for additional costs that we don't have yet. Any questions on that? All right. That then for this year's revenue and expenditures, you should have the revenue to an expenditure with Ginny's email on the transfers. That would be where the December report is for the expenditures. And we've talked in the economic dashboard, we talked about most of the things that are the most volatile and significant for revenues. That as we go through this budget process, that we have to project out this year's revenues in order to get next year's revenue projection. And once we get the budget out, I'll go back and document formally what we think for this year. For the expenditures, the biggest concern we have right now are all these snowstorms that we're still in the middle of the cycle. We'll try and quantify those costs. And likely the budgets will be over, but we do have a regular contingency that should cover that. So we're not concerned anything about the bottom line of the budget for the expenditures. We are asking you in that Ginny email to approve some inter-department transfers. And they're all listed individually. And I just took this as the summary that you can see these codes A to J up on the individual classifications. And so I just tried to summarize them here for you, that we've had an awful lot of employee changes with long-term leaves, FMLA leaves, retirements. And so we can save $54,000 in our budget from that. The town clerk needs extra licenses for her computers. That what they were doing is getting off the computers when the title searchers came in, so that because they didn't have enough licenses for both. The selectmen did approve that as part of their budget deliberations last year, and it's my error. I did not get it onto the budget summary form. So we're putting that in here as a budget transfer. Some of the fees that we're not going to have to pay because of the reval. On the reval, they did some quirky things. They said, oh, we'll include this for 2 years and we'll include this for 4 years. And when Steve presents his budget, you'll see that we've tried to keep them and offset that budget, that reval reserve with those. Health insurance, that we've had a lot of employees that used to have health, take a payment in lieu of health insurance, are now asking for health insurance. And maybe their spouse got laid off, or they had a different policy. So we're finding more people, and the Board of Ed is as well, more people taking the health insurance. And so that's got an additional cost. That Blight, the legal fees, we wanted just to add, it's not a big deal, but they didn't have money in their budget for that because their budget's about $3,000 for.
Can I ask on the blight, have we made any progress on blighted properties? Steve, you're muted. Steve, you're muted.
Sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah, we have. We meet monthly. We brought up about 15 properties at the last Blight meeting. The Blight Commission, the Blight Panel operates based on direct complaints from residents or others, and we've taken up a number of new properties, particularly on Federal Road. I made a motion and the Blight Panel has agreed. There are 3 properties that we have placed liens upon, and that's a legal process we have to go through. I mean, we find people after we go through the whole process. Our final step is to find people into cleaning up their properties. And then, well, if they do nothing with the fines, we have to perfect that lien on the town records. So Tom Beecher has to go to court, and we have about $50,000 of those that are now liened against the properties. Our next step with some of these, and this is only the egregious cases, is to foreclose on the property, to either get them to clean up the property, or we'll take it over and we'll clean it up. We're doing that with one property in the town center area that has been a problem for over 3 years. I imagine we'll probably have a couple more. We've issued citations to a number of properties just this month. asking them to clean up their properties and get them in a condition that is unblighted. One in particular, I won't go through every single one, but you know where the old barnyard used to be, right? Well, the owner went in and it was a health hazard, so we ordered him to, you know, secure the building, and he did do that, but it's still blighted. It still looks like hell. It's still, and the criteria I use is would I want to live next door to that house, and it's still a mess. So he was on the call at our blight panel, and I explained to him that he's still blighted, that he needs to clear that property, cut all that brush down, get it nice looking, and make that either make that house look like it should from the street, or demolish it. And he told us he has an agreement to sell the property to a developer. And we said, that's fine, but we still want it done. We don't care who owns it. So he said he would work on that. The blight panel, and people don't realize it's a long drawn out process to get this done. The owners of properties, state law really favors owners of property. And we have to go through 3 different basically hearings even before we can find them. We have to give them 3 opportunities to do the work, then give them 30 to 45 days to do the work, then they can come back in. So it takes much longer than we would like, but that's state law. So we're working on these. It's working well. I think we're going to continue to chase these properties down and hard. You know, a lot of people in the town center, we really didn't notice that some of these properties were not in great shape. But now that we have a lot of new development and it looks nice and Newberry Village looks nice, it kind of stands out, and we've got to change it, and we're working on it. Does that answer your question in 10 minutes? Sorry, Mark.
It was a lot more of an answer than I needed, but yep,
Okay.
it answered it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Back to this, that was the blight, and that the legal fees are for perfecting those liens. These 2 are highlighted in yellow because we were anticipating that there would be an issue when we did the budget. The police union and public works budget were not, public works contracts were not completed at that time. So we had this in regular contingency, not COVID contingency. We are offsetting, we're not taking it all out of contingency because we've got mostly the save that we can take some out of and leave as much as possible in contingency. And then 1,500 is additional costs for just small costs of testing and so forth for Candlewood Lake Road. So those are the transfers. The details are up above in the lines. And again, they total with into these categories. Any questions on that? Any more questions? All right. With respect to year-end 2022, on that budget, Steve is finalizing the budget, but just 2 things that you should know about. And one, you now already know that Rosa stole my thunder. Health insurance. Our original thought, and Ken and I worked together on this, is what should we use? And when we asked the executive director of the partnership plan, which is what we're in through Connecticut, he said, well, use the national average of 6 to 8%, plus the surcharge for Fairfield County, which was 3.5%. Well, we didn't want to use, we just don't want to pull a number out of our ear. So we went to the actuary's report to try and what is our process going to be for estimating health insurance. And the actuary, when they do the projection for the other post-employment benefits, they project out health insurance, and they do it based on a lot more research than us pulling it out of our ear. So we thought, well, why don't we, going forward, use what the actuary has in that report? We compared it, and it was slightly lower. So the actuary had 6%, and we moved it to 6.25%. Oops. And that's what we're planning on doing going forward, is using that actuary report. Then we had Fairfield County surcharge, and that's how we got 9.75%. Outrageous, I know that, but some towns like Norwalk, I know, was using 11.5 because they took that 8% plus the 3.5. We got an email yesterday from the state saying their preliminary estimate all in with both of these is 4%. And it was, we were a little unbelieving that, so we reached out to the actuary that does the state's plan, who the Board of Ed hires for some work, and said 4%. Is it 4% plus is 3.5%? And we do have the email back that says, nope, 4% is all in. And we also reached out to the executive director that had of the partnership plan that originally told us you can count on 6 to 8%, the national average, to say, come on, that, and he said 4%. And Fern talked to him and said, well, you know, should we add something to that 4% to, you know, make sure that we're covered? That, and he was the one that said several times, it may change in May, but 4% is a very, very conservative estimate, is what he told her. That, and the reasons are, a lot of the reason is COVID. People aren't going to the doctor. We did with the dentist, we got a whole month's premium back last May. So this should be an unusual situation, but from everything we know, and as untrusting as we were on it, that's the best guess we have today. Any questions on that? Anyone else not believe it? All right, you guys are much more believing.
That's the issue is you put it in next month and then we get negatively surprised.
Correct. But we asked about, should we add to it? And he said, this is very, very conservative. So it would be a surprise to everybody that with that response. So I don't see how we could do anything else. So right now that we've got 4%, the Board of Ed's numbers show 4%.
So how does that, I mean, this is a budget discussion, but maybe when we get into March, how this compares kind of historically. Are we conservative, but it's coming lower, or I just want to know kind of what risk we have, but not for tonight, but when we get into March, that's something we should discuss.
We can
Okay.
look at that.
Okay. And then their final figures come in May, in the beginning of May.
Yeah.
And then the one other thing that I want to point out before you get Steve's budget is this premium. We received a premium on the bonds that we issued in August, and that it was $1.8 million. And right now we have it in the general fund as revenue. And I'm thinking that we should move it to capital non-recurring, because we don't want to show it going into fund balance and show using our fund balance. That as simple as a thing that is, that we got a lot of points last year on our budget because we didn't use fund balance, and we all know we really did. That we just slid it around. So we're thinking the same thing with I'm thinking the same thing with the premium, that we put it in the year we're in now. We don't put it in the general fund where it currently is. We put it in the capital non-recurring or bonded capital projects, whatever, and then we transfer it back. But the rule is that we have to use some of it, most of it, to pay off the interest. This is the minimum amount that we have to use. If we wanted to, if we said, hey, we're in really good shape, let's take the $200,000 difference and just let it sit in fund balance. That's an option that we have. So, and it does say that at the bottom of the revenue budget, but I just wanted to explain it a little more, that that's what we received in. The tax rules say we have to spend at least that on offsetting the interest and offsetting debt service. So that's just a weird thing on next year's budget.
That's something we have to vote on, or it's something that we can hold into capital non-recurring until the end of the year and then come to a decision on how.
So when you do the budget, it'll show up in as revenue, because I'm assuming I'm going to just move it for this year. So you could pick the revenue amount anywhere from this amount up to that amount. So that's the decision that you make as you're reviewing the budget, but you can make it right up until you approve the budget.
So I'll make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, then the board will make a recommendation to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like any other revenue or expenditure line in the budget. But I just wanted to point out what that all means. Any questions on any of that? All right.
You all set then, Marcia?
I am all set.
All right, any updates on the audit while that's in there from either Dan or yourself?
The audit, the only thing we've done since last year's audit is we filed the federal clearinghouse that the federal government, we have to do separate reporting for them, and then they don't want to read the separate reporting. They want us to upload it for them. And so that was filed on January 31st or so. We normally have the UCOA report, Uniform Chart of Accounts, where we have to upload things to the state's website, and they're changing that this year. So it's not going to be, I forgot the exact deadline, but it's like March or May or something that we have to file that. So that's not done, but it's not possible to be done right now. And then 2020 will be put to bed.
And we're thankfully in the correct cadence of you got last year behind us. Now we're in budget season. And then after that's done, you can do budget prep. So audit prep. So that's how it should be.
Can't wait.
Yep.
Very good. All right.
Better you guys than me.
New business. Do you want to add anything to the iterative budget process, Marcia?
Just the two transfers that we talked about, the COVID transfer and then the other transfer for intra-department transfers.
Okay, that would be the one for $16,799.
16,070 yes, is the COVID iterative budget transfer. And the other one, I'm not sure if it counts as iterative, but I think that's where you normally talk about it. Yes. The one that
The spreadsheet that you got?
that's coming out. Hold on, let me share the screen again. So the first one is this transfer, 16,799. And then the second one is this transfer for the inter-department transfers.
And that's a total of 66,000. Hold on here.
781, yeah.
That's how much is coming out of contingency. That's the net amount.
Okay, and that would be interdepartment transfers per your spreadsheet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, when we get there, we'll get there. All right. Next up is the police outside services that we got sent to us by the Board of Selectmen. So, Steve, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, we've talked about the police radios for a few years, and Jay Purcell and the Police Commission have agreed it's time to hire a consultant to determine what the needs of the town are for both the police, and we're going to try to incorporate the fire departments and the schools, so everybody's on one system. So we would hire a consultant to make that analysis and make recommendations to us as to what we should do. This is coming from the Outside Services Fund, which is actually a very appropriate use of the money. And it is time to start looking at this.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion that we approve the appropriation of up to $20,000 from the Police Department Outside Services Fund to purchase the services of a consultant to evaluate and make recommendations for the capital upgrade or replacement of the town-wide emergency radio system hosted at the Brookfield Police Department. Do I have a second? Ricky seconds. Discussion? Anybody with discussion on this further?
Yeah, I guess we'll get a presentation of some sort when that.
Yes, this will take 6 to 9 months to complete, and then we will all get a presentation as to what they think the need is and what we should do. And that's right in line with next year's budget if we decide to do it next year.
I know, was it a $4 million? Or what was the number?
Upper range is 4 million. You know, it's ranged anywhere from 2.5 to 4. Right now, it's in the capital budget at 4 as a placeholder.
Okay.
It's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved unanimous. Okay, on to the CMAQ funds for electric vehicles. Steve?
Yeah, so an opportunity came up to get a grant, and we decided through Westcog to apply as a region, particularly keeping in mind that we're trying to create an electric corridor up Route 7 all the way to the Massachusetts border at some point. And that helps when you apply for these grants if you have an overall plan. So we're doing it with Westcog. New Milford will actually run the grant for everybody. And the opportunity is to buy cars and the charging stations for those cars. And the grant will pay 80% of it. And we have a number of vehicles that are older and beat up. And so if we buy a $40,000 car to replace a 2007 vehicle, we have 4 that we're thinking of replacing, perhaps 5. We're still looking at one. We put 5 in, but that 5th one we may pull back out. So we could get $40,000 vehicles for $8,000. Charging stations go from anywhere from $2,000 for a basic charging station that you might have in your house, up to $40,000 to $50,000 for the high-speed chargers that you can charge a Tesla in 45 minutes. We would probably go with just the medium ones because these cars stay on the town campus. They can be charged overnight. They have ranges of 250 to 280 miles or so. So we could keep them topped up and perfectly usable for the entire time. But in thinking about this, the Board of Finance always asks me, well, where are we going to get the money for our town portion? And since we're so close to the budget season, I think we should put it in the capital budget. And that's what I plan to do. So I don't think the Board of Finance should, I'm asking that you not approve this tonight, that we put it in the capital budget, see where it fits in with everything else. But I think it's a really good way to get into electric vehicles at a very nominal cost to the town. So some of these cars in the next 2 years, we're going to have to replace them anyway. So if there's 2 2007s, I believe, that are really kind of beat up. So we'd have to replace those for about $40,000 a piece. In this, for 5 cars, we're going to spend a maximum of $50,000 and get the charging stations too, which can be expensive. We've checked town hall. Interestingly enough, for all the times we value engineer stuff, Mark, you'll like this. We have a 1,400 amp service into the town building, and we're using about 700 amps of that. So we have way more amperage than we need. So we would just run the lines outside under the ground and build the charging stations. We wouldn't have to add anything to the town's inside infrastructure to do that. I don't know why we have 1400 amps, but we do. So I'm suggesting, and I'm going to say to you that I'd like to pull this back and just put it in our normal capital budget and see where it fits with everything else.
Sounds appropriate to me.
Love it.
So
I have a
we
question.
don't need a motion or anything. We can just
No.
ignore this.
Yep. I have a question though, like I'm just looking over your mileage
Yeah,
and on one sheet I got the sanitary mileage is 1,800 miles per year. And on the sheet of the new car, you're asking for 6,000 miles a year. I mean, these numbers, who's driving 6,000 miles in Brookfield in an annual year? Because that number seems, if I did it 365 days, it comes out to like 15 miles every day, every year.
yeah. I don't know the exact answer to that, Glenn, and I apologize. Greg Dombowski did the analysis. Some of these cars are kind of so beat up. I think a lot of our employees are using their own cars rather than using a town car. And I think if there were new cars, they'd probably use the town car more often. They don't charge us for use of their own cars, and we encourage them to use the town cars because of liability reasons. But I think that might be the reason. I'm not sure, but I can ask Greg how he came up with those numbers. And
Because the numbers aren't even close, like going from the sheets that you gave us, like I say, 1,800 and 1,800 for the sanitarian, and then it's 6,000. Deliveries to school, 6,000 miles to go between the schools. I just was wondering, where these numbers come from, because it's tough to drive 6,000 miles between every school.
Well, Glenn, I think that's just when you're applying for the grant, there's numbers you plug in, probably just plug numbers to make us get the most out
yeah,
of
they
it.
are plugged
All right.
in. Sure.
Fair enough.
But Steve will get the info properly.
Fair enough.
I asked who, would the charging stations be available to people in town too? Is it going to be chargeable so people can, and there are a lot of electric cars I'm seeing in town.
I think that's a good idea. We'd have to figure it out so that the town cars came first, right? But that's a really good idea. I think we're getting to the point, GM just said they're going to be all electric by 2035. Every car company is getting on here, and we're right at the edge of the cliff where everybody's going to be going. So we really have to think about, and I wish we had thought about it a little bit more, like with the downtown streetscape, putting in the capability to add charging stations. We could still do it, but it would be more expensive. So yeah, I think we could do that, because if these cars are out all day, we'll let residents come and charge their car for a little bit. The problem there, I think, is that if you allow non-town vehicles to do it, you got to allow anyone who wants to.
You mentioned this corridor of Route 7, so I assume
right. That might be the problem, that people, they're out of electricity. Oh, there's 5 stations at Brookfield Town Hall. Let's go sit there for 3 hours. Yeah. And then who's paying for that electricity?
But they're metered usually, aren't they? I mean, if you probably
you swipe a card.
You can meter them. You can, have people pay for it. That's another option that you can use. And if we decided to do that, I think that would be reasonable.
Yeah, I'm just curious if we could, with the registrations in town, if they can look at how many electric cars we do have. You see a lot of Teslas at least around town.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious to know, maybe when it comes to budget time, just to look at need and potentially just outside of the town.
Yeah, for our residents in town, I don't think there's a great need for additional charging stations in town because they have them at their houses.
Yeah.
Right. It's for transients who are going from one place to another and they need a place to charge their car. But we'd certainly set up to charge them if they came in.
What's the ongoing operating expense of one of these, like charging stations?
The charging stations is virtually none. It's just an electrical outlet. Somebody might.
Yeah, but somebody's paying for the electrical to go into that outlet. No, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, but what's the fee? What is the fee for a charging station on an annual basis if it was used by the town? Is it a $50 a month thing, $100 a month fee, $500 a month fee?
Oh, you mean how much does it cost versus gasoline?
No, your electricity coming to the house, if you use it, you pay on a per kilowatt basis, correct? How much does it charge on a kilowatt basis to charge these vehicles on an ongoing? Is it like $5? It could be cheap. I don't know. Or is it an expensive process?
It would be at our normal electric rate, but then it's an offset from, we wouldn't be spending money on gasoline. And the cost is on average a little less for electricity. So it's pretty much a wash. And anyone outside of town vehicles, we would probably charge them for the use of the charging station.
Okay. I have no idea what it costs. That's why I asked the question. I have no idea.
Hey, Steve,
Right.
for capital deliberations, can we get kind of a full analysis of what the cost benefit of both the grant and getting these all in there ends up being, just so that we have kind of strong concrete numbers going into it?
Yeah, we'll do a cost analysis of, one of the things that will be significantly less expensive is the maintenance, because you're really just maintaining electric motors. And they're much simpler is what they're said. But I'll ask Greg to do some analysis. He can find some facts and figures and see.
Okay, here's another question. What happens if one of those for some reason does break down? Who ends up repairing that? That's not something any of your staff mechanics can handle.
No,
So
we would probably we would have to train our mechanics repairing them, but it's like anything, or take them, they'll be covered by warranty for a certain period. And then you would either train your mechanics to repair them. They're much simpler mechanically than gas or diesel vehicles. So we'd have to check. We'd either have to train people or continue or take them to a dealer or a shop that knows how to repair electric vehicles.
Okay.
So basically, we're going to put it into next year's budget underneath the capital and prioritize it like we've prioritized all of our capital in past years.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I plan to do.
Okay. Anybody else on this? Nope. All right, on to budget transfers. We've talked about them. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the COVID contingency fund transfers in the amount of $16,799.78 and the interdepartment transfers of $66,781.41 as outlined in the COVID costs executive summary and expenditures budget versus the actual through 12/31/20 provided by Marcia Marion and forwarded to us.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Hold on, I have one quick discussion.
Yep.
So we have the budget transfer recommended by Steve for the 16,000. The other one we don't have in front of us recommended by the selectmen. Do we need that, or can we just add it to it?
So it's in your agenda, and she did send it there. I took the amount out because that was only showing the transfer in and out of contingency.
Yep.
But if you look at your minutes, it talks about the budget versus actual as of December 31st. That is the intra transfers.
Okay.
I think it works, Mark, because in the Steve's letter to us, it says, and the interdepartment transfers is outlined
Okay.
in Marcia's thing.
And then she
So
just change out.
that number, as long as we attach that sheet or whatever to the minutes,
Yep. Okay.
it
And
covers it.
Board of Selectmen did approve them.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else with discussion? All those in favor? All right. Passes unanimously. All right, on to the budget meeting calendar, Steve.
Yeah, well, so the Board of Selectmen has set their meetings up for the next 2 weeks or so. And then you guys have to decide, you got the calendar, right, that Ginny suggested and Marcia's spreadsheet on when the meetings are. Do you want me to set those meetings up for your?
I don't have the calendar.
Yeah, okay.
Can we
Does
put it
anybody else
up?
have
Does
it?
Marcia have it? Can she put it up?
Marcia, you've got your spreadsheet, right?
I've got my spreadsheet, and hold on, let me just find the email because for some reason I cannot connect.
The But if the board wants, we can, in the next 2 to 3 days, send you a proposed schedule of meetings.
Don't we have to approve it tonight?
No,
We don't have another meeting before then.
Right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be tonight.
So the only spreadsheet I have is this one, which you guys didn't like. I was, let me see how I can make it.
I just want it on a calendar.
This one is calculating so that
yeah,
all the dates are due. That
So when are we due?
Board of Selectmen's is due. The town clerk is due 3/20. That you've got to give it to the town clerk.
Okay.
That seems early.
It does.
Is it just that we got so many extensions last year?
We didn't get extensions on this part.
Yeah.
no, this is also, remember, you have to do the capital 45 days before the referendum.
Yep.
So that's what pushes it back to March. Remember that one year we
Yeah,
didn't
but-
do that? And we
Seems
had,
a week early. It seems a week early,
Absolutely.
right?
we can check it, but Marcia has all this,
Okay.
So what I tried to do is to make it so instead of counting out days on a calendar, trying to go backwards and just key it off of the dates where it says in the charter. And I did approve it with Tom Beecher. This was last year when I developed it. I approved it with Tom Beecher, and then it was Ginny that was putting it into a calendar format from here.
she's doing that for me because I like a calendar. We can do that for you too. Your request last year, the Board of Selectmen is going to meet with Public Works, Parks and Rec, Police, Library, Land Use, the big 90% of our budgets, not every single department. I think you asked for the same thing. And if you want, we'll arrange that for the Board of Finance too, and get everybody lined up.
So if it's the 20th, then we're gonna have to start, and if we're gonna, so that means the week of the 15th is deliberations. That means we're gonna have to have department meetings starting the week of the 1st, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that does seem a week
And
early.
it doesn't give us a lot of time. That doesn't give us more than a day or two with the Board of Ed.
Right.
Yeah. That does seem a little short.
That
Yeah.
seems very short.
We usually don't start until the next, we usually don't start until the second week. This is a
Okay.
week earlier. If it is, I mean, if it is what it is, it is what it is.
Okay.
So we can double check.
Okay, why don't we double check, and then we'll come up with a tentative calendar for you guys, and then you can meet by Zoom for 5 minutes and just approve the calendar for
Marcia,
special
can you
meetings.
send this to me and I'll look at it compared to previous years because I have the old
Sure.
calendars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Let me-
I agree, Steve. I want to see it in calendar form to
Okay,
easily
I
digest it.
can do that.
okay, we'll do that.
Before you present anything, let's talk about it, because we didn't like Mondays and Fridays as a group.
Right.
We put in a lot of time. I mean, I think we all are, got outside things. Is that what we decided as a group? Did we do Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays? Or did you have other thought processes, board?
Well, my thought is that if we're cut down to 2 weeks of looking at this, then we're going to need Mondays and Fridays. If we've got the normal 3 weeks, then I'm fine with that in theory, but I like a couple extra deliberation days, even if we don't use them.
We're also going to have less departments presenting, so that'll help. Okay, so why don't we put together a calendar for you? We'll double check the dates, and then we'll get that out to you Friday, Monday, or by Tuesday or so. Does that work? Because Friday and Monday are holidays.
Yep.
We have no choice but Tuesday.
Sounds good.
And we'll try to get it to you sooner.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Marcia.
Eileen, you said you had the old calendars, right, too?
Yeah, I'll put this into the format that we've used before to have it in a calendar. I personally also need the calendar bit, as much as I love Excel spreadsheets, but I still need a more visual representation. So I'll
All
work on
right.
That was not intended to replace the calendar. That was just
Okay.
intended so that I didn't count out days and
Yeah,
I was, the stuff that's not highlighted, I was trying to think of a new format to meet less, but that
Yep.
didn't seem to fly.
no, thank you.
All right. Then any other business to come before the board?
Do we want to look at or talk about, we got this Kendaway Lake Water Road Extension Assessment?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody want to talk about that?
We could. It's going before a town meeting, right, this week, Steve, right?
No, we had to cancel it again because of the snowstorm. So right now, we're going to have the town meeting on the 23rd at the Brookfield High School. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about phase 4. I'm sorry.
Right.
So this is all approved and we're moving ahead with it.
Okay, that's right. But no, I heard that some things may have changed. They were gonna add 200 feet to the school because the school needed it, but then I've heard that it's been worked out.
Yes, it's all been worked out. We have 9, as you can see from the report, almost exactly how many people signing up for it that we thought would sign up to do the hookup that are eligible for the plan. There are 2 houses who want to hook up who do not qualify to be in the program, so they'll just pay for their hookup separately. And we're on target, we're on budget, everything is right where we want it to be.
So I don't know if I don't know how to count, but the bottom right of this spreadsheet says 9 yes qualify, 2 yes don't qualify, 13 no or no response, and I'm counting 18 no or no response. So maybe I don't know how to count.
Yeah, maybe we didn't add it up right.
But there's 29 properties and
8,
13, 9, and 2 is not 29.
9 qualify, right? And there's 29 properties. 9 and 9 is 18, right?
That
Okay.
leaves 20.
Yeah, so all the white ones,
Yes, don't qualify. It's 18.
right? Either they did not answer or they do not qualify. The orange ones do qualify for a hookup, right, as part of the program. And there are 2, you should have 2 red ones, Pedro Rodriguez and Shauna O'Leary.
Yep.
Terry and Phyllis, they want to hook up even though they don't qualify.
The greens and the whites are no's and or no responses. There's 18 of those.
Yeah.
Just if you wanted to get the
Yes, may have the wrong number down there. Some more said no.
which I guess isn't surprising, but I'm kind of disappointed. I would have liked to have seen more support, but
Yeah. This is pretty much where,
it is what it is.
yeah, we said it was going to be 7 to 9. I think that we guessed 7 to 9, and that's how many are hooking up that qualify.
Okay,
So
so we're on track.
Yep.
Budget.
We're on track.
On track.
All right. Any other items before the board? Anybody with public comment?
I don't think there's any public left.
We weren't that long. We're only an hour and 18, so I mean,
Hey, Mark,
Oh, there's Harry.
you hurt my feelings.
No, Harry, I don't think of you as public. I think of you as almost godlike in your duties as selectman.
I thank you. Thank you.
all right. Hearing no public comment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All right.
All right, meeting
night,
adjourned. Have a
everybody.
Good night.